everyone, this is Scott here. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about the video that I recently put up about installing Arch from scratch. I got some pretty good feedback about how difficult it was to follow along with, and I kind of agree. It's not really beginner friendly. It skips the whole part where you have to install an ISO to a like basically a bootable disk like this. So today I was hoping to make a video about installing one of these with Rufus and then Balena Etcher. So if you've never used any of those applications before, I suggest you continue on watching and learn something about how to flash a drive. So basically, I wanted to make this video because I felt like this might be a more user-friendly approach to starting to get into Linux. With Linux, and especially with a boot disk, you don't have to actually like build an environment from scratch. So what I was hoping to do was just flash, maybe MintOS to this drive right here, and basically just launch into a RAM loaded environment, just to show you that it's not a requirement to necessarily install Linux or create a virtual machine, but just to temporarily play around with it, it's good to know how to flash it to a drive, but also just how to create a flash drive in general. So without further ado, I think I'm going to get into the video. So as you can see here, I have my flash drive. I'm just going to plug this into my Windows machine right here, just so. And you don't have to worry about this step. This is just for me because I'm on a virtual machine, but if you're on Windows, it should just automatically recognize the drive. So for me, I have to attach my USB, and it looks like it cut out there a little bit. I hope that's not a problem. Kind of cut out there a little bit because it needs to add that USB, controller to like the operating system. If I get that wrong or that explanation wrong, please correct me. But basically, with that out of the way, you're going to be on your Windows desktop, because I'm assuming most of you watching this video are probably on Windows. If you are on Windows and you want to flash a drive, let's say you have something like Arch Linux, or maybe, let's say, for example, you want to go to Mint, like Mint Linux, what is it? So let's say, hypothetically, you don't want to install Arch. I just had Arch there kind of as an example. If you want to download something like Mint, which is a lot more user-friendly and has the ability to launch an environment without installing it to your drive, this is a great operating system for that. So I'm going to download just, the regular Cinnamon edition. I'm going to just... Okay, so you can click here. There's multiple servers that you can get it from. These will just give you a direct download of the ISO. I'm just going to do a... probably just a torrent, honestly. If you want to know the difference between the torrent, torrent is basically just a decentralized network in which you can download files from, and overall it usually downloads much quicker, but that speed will be dependent on how many torrents, like sources, are connected to the network at once, so your mileage may vary is what I'm trying to say. So the first thing that I wanted to start off with was Rufus, because Rufus is pretty configurable. That's why I like it. It's not as easy to understand, but I think Rufus is easy enough for anyone to just pick it up. Maybe not know all the tricks that you can use to do certain things. I remember I had to use Rufus because Windows wouldn't allow me to use the FAT32 format or file system. And well, I was limited essentially by the fact that I had a 64 gigabyte drive inside, and usually it only does, 32 gigabytes or lower. So what I had to do was use Rufus to force format it to FAT32 so I could install a PlayStation 3 update actually at one point. So in that regard, it's kind of useful if you want to bypass those guardrail features that are on Windows. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to teach you using Rufus. The next one is going to be Balena Etcher. Balena Etcher is much easier to use. You just select the file, you select your drive, and you're done. So without further ado, I think I'm going to just show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so as you can see here, I have my two ISOs. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to boot up Rufus. So I have Rufus downloaded here in a file. It's just a simple exe file. You don't have to install it. You just got to run it as administrator. And this is what it's going to look like. So you're going to have these options. You're going to want to select the drive that you want to format. It might already have a name. It's going to have a letter. And then you're going to want to select the disk that you want to use, to basically copy onto the target drive. So you do that by saying, well, of course, you need disk or ISO. That's important. Then you need to select the disk. Go to, desktop, Mix Mint Cinnamon, open. It's going to give you this screen. It's going to say partition scheme, yes, MBR, BIOS, or UEFI. That's definitely the target system you want to make this for. What do you want to call it? This is what you can give the label for the volume. FAT32, yes. That's totally, you can totally do that with this drive because it's a 16 gigabyte drive. And just whenever you're ready, you're just going to want to press start. You're going to want to press OK to this. Any of these if these warnings come up, just press yes. OK. And it's going to basically push, basically take those files that are in the compressed ISO and map them to the drive, and then it's going to give you like a little Rufus icon that's going to show up in Windows, and it's basically going to be, the necessary files that you need to build the operating system. Let's say if you're not using a virtual machine like me and you want to basically boot into the disk, on your motherboard manual, if you have a motherboard manual for your computer, if it happens to be a desktop, it's going to tell you which keys to press to access the boot menu, right? And that's going to look like, just a list of devices that are probably going to be named like UEFI device, and it might have the name of the operating system next to it. That's what it's going to look like. But basically, to get there, the important thing to know is that you're probably going to have to press some sort of key when the computer restarts. So when the computer restarts, you either press usually escape, F1, F2, or maybe F11 or F12. There are some cases where they ask you to press delete. And of course, if you're on a laptop, this information is usually going to be in your laptop manual. For this computer specifically, mine is F11 to access the boot menu. I'm pretty sure if you're on MSI like I am, an MSI motherboard, it's going to be pretty much the same. So if you followed along so far with this process, I'm just going to say, once you start that formatting process of formatting and then copying the ISO, just take a cup of coffee, sit back and relax, and it's going to be a little bit until that ISO is fully copied onto the disk. Okay, so it looks like we're done. As you can see, it says ready. Once that's come up on screen and the green bar is full, you're going to want to press close, and it's going to close out. And then if you look here, look at that. We have a Linux device right here, a Linux boot device. And you can see here it gave it the little icon, the auto run icon. Usually it shows up in File Manager, but I guess it didn't do it this time. But if you have that installed, then that's good. If you see all these files right here, then that's good. You've installed Linux Mint to that boot device. So there's another way that you could do this, which is a lot easier. I suggest you guys try this out first, which is using Balena Etcher. If you pull this up right over here, you could see, look, there's a pretty simple process. I mean, like in the way of settings, there's not really anything to change or do. Things are just handled automatically. If you want to add a file, you just press flash file, go to the directory in which your file is in. Like let's say you want to do Linux Mint, open that up and just select your target device. There you go, SanDisk Cruiser Glide USB device. That sounds right to me. And you just flash. Essentially like that, it'll do everything for you, and it's quite simple to follow. Okay, so let's say hypothetically you made this boot disk. Once you select that boot disk in your boot menu, it's going to look something like this. When I boot up this virtual machine, you should be presented with this image, basically this grub looking like menu. Essentially, it looks very similar to the UEFI boot menu that you used to select the disk in the first place. So just to show you, I'm going to go to the settings here. You can see that there is no storage device other than the boot disk itself. If you don't have a storage device, that's fine. It's going to still work anyways. But basically what I want to say is that if you want to play around with Linux and, you know, you don't want to make a mistake with your important data that's on your hard drive, you can do everything within the test environment that gets loaded into RAM. Once you shut down, everything in there is lost. So don't store anything important in there, but just it's kind of a great environment, honestly, if you're just a beginner, because it allows you to experiment and not do permanent damage to your drive. However, your data will still be accessible by that drive, so it's probably better off that you experiment on a virtual machine, which I'm going to show later on in the future, but it's just one of the alternatives that you can access. Okay, so when you're met with the boot screen, which I'm going to get to right now, it's going to load up like this, essentially, after you press the UEFI option. You're going to press switch, capture, yep, and you're going to want to go to Start Linux Mint. So when you press enter on that option, all right, so it's loading into memory. It may take a little bit of time to do this, but you will see a screen come up. Touch root. No file or directory. RM. What's going on there? There we go. Once you see those OKs, that means everything should be good to go. So it'll take a little bit of time depending on your machine specs and how much RAM you have. Performance is going to vary. Okay, so it didn't work that first time because I didn't have enough VRAM. That's another important thing, although I don't think this is going to be a problem for you since almost every graphics card nowadays has more than even 128 megabytes of VRAM. So I'm just going to go into full screen mode here, start Linux Mint, press enter. It's going to load. Probably going to take a little bit, considering that basically there's only 4 gigabytes of RAM here. I just wanted to do that to prove that this system can run even under very low spec hardware. So if you are worried about that, don't fret. In fact, I think, in my opinion, Linux Mint is probably better than Windows because it can run under very, low spec computer grade hardware. So if you see a list of OKs, that's a good thing. That means that the machine is booting. It might take a while considering that the space is quite limited. As I showed you before, there's no disk that it's installing to. So you're just going to be basically booting into that desktop environment. So it kind of was pretty rough when booting up. As you can see here, when I switch to like full screen mode, it won't look like this. It will usually adapt to the resolution of your display, but because I'm in a virtual machine, it's a little bit different. But it's chugging. So if you're on 4 gigabytes of RAM, I wouldn't recommend it. But I can prove to you that it does work. So I think I can change the resolution from here to something a little bit better. Let's see if that works. That's a little bit better. Keep new configuration. So you can, at least get 16 by 9. It's running fine. Like, this is, honestly, it's quite responsive, considering. Okay, there's no disk in here. There's only 4 CPUs, only 4 gigabytes of RAM, and it's still running. So, as you can see here, if I do lsblk, there's only the CD-ROM, and that's it, okay? So, yeah, that's basically how to boot into a virtual machine. So, yeah, that's basically how to, create a install medium and boot into it. So if you like this video, please leave a like. If you dislike it, please leave a dislike, and please leave a comment as to why you disliked it. I'd really like to hear your feedback. And just like always, if you have a correction that you want to make to the video, I appreciate it because I do read this feedback. If you have a correction, just leave the timestamp and the correction, and I'll make sure to put it in the description and give you credit for it. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Bye.